And it's Ken Kraetzer at the Sports Page Restaurant in downtown White Plains, New York, with the West Point Football Report as the Army Black Knights will host Ball State on Saturday at Michie Stadium. An opportunity for them to improve on the season, maybe turn around the season. Tough road trip, 3 games at Stanford, at Wake Forest, and then, of course, last week the trip to the Yale Bowl, the 100th anniversary of that stadium. But all 3 games resulted in defeats for Army after an opening day win over Buffalo. So Army trying to turn the season around and has an opportunity against a Ball State team that's been struggling. Ball State has lost 3 games itself. So this is a couple of teams that really are looking for a win. Ball State on the year started with a win over Colgate from the football championship division, 30-10, as would be kind of expected. Then they played a close game at Iowa from the Big Ten, and Indiana State, a loss at home, 27-20, and then they lost 2 weeks ago to Toledo, 34-23 on Mid-America Conference, their first conference game of the year, and a disappointing loss for Ball State. They come in averaging 193 yards per game passing the ball, and they've been rushing the ball 167 yards, averaging 21 points a game, and giving up 22. So their forte so far has been on defense. I mean, certainly limiting Iowa to just 17 points would probably be something that they would have felt was an accomplishment. But giving up 34 2 weeks ago against Toledo, certainly a disappointment for Ball State. So they're going to come into Michie Stadium. We've seen them a couple of times, and they've been tough for Army to deal with. So we're going to see what the Black Knights can do this week. As we said, Army coming off a 49-43 overtime loss at Yale. Army is scoring 27.8 points a game, which is good, but they are giving up 36 points a game, which is just not going to work. Certainly part of that is from the Stanford game, but also giving up points, 49 points to Yale last week, certainly is not what's expected of the defense. Army rushing 316 yards per game. And as we said, a couple of injuries. Coach Monken at the press conference Tuesday said that Mike Eugeni, the defensive tackle, has had a number of injuries. Doesn't sound like serious injuries, but ones that have limited his play. And Ryan Alexander, who I got a chance to talk with this week, is a likely fill-in at the defensive end spot. So we said A.J. Shure had an injury last week. It was described as cramps by Coach Monken. So it's expected that he will be back in action, ready to start the game on Saturday. Jeff Bacon, the starting free safety, a more serious injury, had a brace on his ankle after leaving the game in the third quarter. And he's out, I guess, what you could describe as indefinitely. But hopefully that Jeff Bacon can make it back later in the year. A key part of the Army defense, probably the best athlete on the defense, and someone who can play the full field, side to side. They had him at middle linebacker when he was a sophomore, and he really wasn't big enough for that position. He was taking a lot of blocks or pushing him out of the play. But a free safety, his natural position, has been very effective. Army, 5.7 yards per carry, which is good. Passing 90 yards a game. They've been throwing the ball better, both A.J. Shure and Angel Santiago, in the Wake Forest game and in the Yale game. Army really needs to average at least 100 yards a game passing to take the pressure off the option offense. Another key thing, defense giving up 483 yards per game, which is something that Army's going to have to improve on. and also 0 of 3 on field goals. And Dan Grochowski, disappointed, I know, missing the 42-yard field goal at the end of regulation. It was a clumpy field at Yale. I mean, it's great. We used to say it's great to play on a grass field, but I walked across it before the game, and it was a very clumpy field, a very slow field compared to the artificial surfaces that are very fast, the field turf that Army plays on most of the time, certainly at Michie Stadium. So this is going to be a challenge. Ball State comes in, a team that can both run the ball and throw the ball. And looking a little bit at some of where Army stands statistically, Army is ninth in the country in rushing with, as I said, 316 yards per game. That's the strength of this team. Overall, on passing yards, they're way back in Division I at 125th, 90.8 yards. They are, as we said, giving up 27 points a game, 77th in Division I. But they are giving up, as I said, 36 points a game, which is 111th. Points for 27. Points against 36 is a tough differential to win football games. But we see opportunities for improvement on the defense. And meanwhile, there's going to be an important game in Colorado Springs that we want to highlight as well, with Air Force playing and hosting the Naval Academy. And for Navy going in, they are under Keenan Reynolds, they're coming off a couple of losses to Rutgers and Western Kentucky. Those are games that were challenges for Navy. Keenan Reynolds, of course, their quarterback, has now scored in 12 straight games. Looking at them on the season, they started with a tough loss to Ohio State, 34-17. And then they defeated Temple, a very good win, 31-24. And then defeated Texas State on the road, but lost at home to both Rutgers and Western Kentucky. Rutgers, coming in off a loss to Penn State, wanted to prove that it was ready for Big 12 competition. They're going to have the opportunity to host Michigan this week, which should be interesting for their program. And Western Kentucky Army will visit later in the year. So far, Navy is passing for 90 yards a game, very similar to Army, but they're second in the country in rushing, 358 yards. That's the kind of total Army had a couple of years ago. But that is really a strong rushing game for Navy. They're scoring 26 points a game, and their defense is 29 per game. And we'll take a look at Air Force in just a second. Had a chance to talk with Coach Munkin on his press conference call on Tuesday, as we said, and he commented a little bit about that the offense was effective at times, but at other times, short drives, they had to punt, and they had 2 fourth-down situations that they didn't convert, and defensively didn't do a good job in his expectation in stopping the running game. About the struggles that Army's had in the fourth quarter, Coach Munkin said you win throughout the game, you don't just win in the fourth quarter. But Army's had leads and not been able to hold on to them, which has certainly been disappointing. One of the goals for the season, I know, was to try to win the fourth quarter. But it is challenging when you have a team, especially in defense, where you don't have a lot of depth to bring fresh players in at different points in the game. You're pretty much going with one set of linebackers and defensive backs Where Army has depth is on the front defensive line, but as we said, one of the key starters, Mike Eugeni, has been out with nagging injuries. So Army in defense, not a lot of depth, and that's one of the reasons that they have been struggling so far this year. A little bit about Ball State from Coach Munkin. They have a good running back, big offensive lineman, as we would expect. And one of the things that he says is so important is that they play with great pad level. They keep their shoulder pads at the right level to maximize their leverage in blocking and tackling. And they have a defensive coordinator that worked with Coach Munkin, Kevin Kelly, at Navy for 2 years. So seems to be the trend. Coach Munkin has got a lot of colleagues out in the college football industry that he has coached with over the years. And a little bit about a question was asked about, well, gosh, Army's 1-3, and it's getting tough to think about the bowl game, the appearance in the Armed Forces Bowl in Fort Worth. And Coach Munkin said, as I think any football coach will say, you play one at a game, you try to win one game at a time. I asked the coach a little bit about Jeff Munkin, about the condition of Jeff Bacon, and he said, we're optimistic at some point we will get him back this year. And he said he's really counting on Hayden Pierce, a senior, and Stephen Johnson, the sophomore safety, to be able to handle the position. But really, Jeff Bacon's been the cornerstone of the defensive backfield so far, really the last 2 years. And he's asking for Ryan Alexander to really step up, noting that Army really doesn't have a lot of size yet on its defensive line. But as he said, Ryan Alexander's a tough kid, a hard-working kid. He's not a great big guy, but he's quick. And our defense, we understand that about our guys, that you got to win on quickness by reacting and covering the assignments that are designed for those defenses. And again, a lot of confidence in A.J. Sure. If he can just stay healthy, he's had kind of a series of injuries over his career, and that especially limited him last year. And he had an injury going into the preseason that set him back, really missed the first 2 weeks of training camp. And Angel Santiago, who's a very consistent player and is an experienced player, won the starting job in the August camp, and basically has been very productive this year. But the thought has always been that A.J. Sure has had outstanding potential to really be a great quarterback in terms of both running the ball and passing the ball. So I have a feeling we'll have a chance to see that demonstrated on Saturday against Ball State as Army takes on Ball State on Saturday at Michie Stadium. A little bit about we talked a little bit about the game that'll be out in Colorado Springs, Navy and Air Force. Air Force has been playing very well. A little more balanced. They're passing 129 yards, rushing for 323, sixth best in the country. They're scoring more points than Navy, 33 a game, and they've given up 21. And they're coming off what you might call a signature win for them over Boise State. Air Force won over Nicholls State, lost to Wyoming, defeated Georgia State, and then a big win, Boise State. We saw Boise State win right here against Connecticut in the opening week of the season and play very well. So that is going to be a task for Navy. And of course, we're going to see Air Force at Michie Stadium the first weekend of November. Looking forward to that game. Always a great event. The Commander-in-Chief's round-robin games between the three academies certainly been dominated by Navy the last couple of years. They hold the Commander-in-Chief trophy. Army desperately wants to win that trophy back, and but it's really coveted amongst the schools, and Air Force has kind of dominated the competition over the last 20 years or so. But Army feels it's got a chance. When you have the Air Force game at home, it's a big advantage. Army, as we see, plays as much as 2 touchdowns better at home. Over the last 5 years, I've been watching them closely. Michie Stadium is just a big home field advantage. So when you get the Air Force game at home at Michie Stadium, a great day. It's already sold out a month in advance. You have all of the kind of antics of the 2 academies. A couple hundred students will come in from Air Force, their bands, their mascots, and there'll be flyovers. Air Force may sneak a flyover over Michie Stadium, and of course Army will also reply in kind. Usually they have special uniforms, so we're all looking forward to that one. But Commander-in-Chief's trophy competition starts tomorrow in Colorado Springs. That game is a later start, so we can see it after the Army game, and that game will be 3:30. Yes, 3:30 on the CBS Sports Network right after the Army game. So it's going to be a good day of Academy football to follow. So just a few more thoughts on the game tomorrow. Certainly, Army's been kind of juggling its offensive line. Matt Hugenberg has been the center, but it's his first year playing center. He's ever played the position in college, so he's learning on the job. But he's got a size that he brings, 309 pounds, which Army hasn't had at that position in a while. Stephen Shoemaker is a senior at the left guard. Left tackle, Drew Hennessy. Right guard, Jaron Vilnagus. But he got hurt against Yale, so we may see some other players there. Lofi Tamasi, who is a sophomore, a big sophomore, 6'1", 304 pounds, number 55, a good guy to keep your eye on. And then the right tackle, another senior, Todd McDonald, 6'2", Todd McDonald, 6', 260. Again, we'll be watching to see if A.J. Shure goes out to start. I'm pretty confident that he will be out there. And then take a look at the defensive line for Army. It should be nose tackle Richard Glover, the tough nose tackle from Texas. You'll probably see some of T.J. Altamala. It's one position where Army's got some depth. 2 seniors, very similar, very tough players who can alternate the spot and play and cover the middle of the defensive line. We talked a little bit last week with James Kelly at the one defensive end, Ryan Alexander at the other side, Stephen Riccardi at the outside linebacker, the senior, and on the inside you've got Andrew King, and you have got Jeremy Timp, who has played just extraordinary for Army this year as a sophomore. Just going over. Timp has got 32 tackles on the year, leading the team. 43, 32 that are unassisted. The next best on the team is his partner at inside linebacker, Andrew King, who's got 24. Steven Johnson, Josh Jenkins from the secondary, Jeff Bacon, Hayden Pierce. So it's the inside linebackers and the defensive backs who are making the vast majority of the tackles for Army. Steve Riccardi has got 13 tackles on the season, but Jeremy Timp, really one of the pleasant surprises. He's emerged as a terrific player. I understand he was going to be a baseball player at Army, but then decided to concentrate on football. We can see why he has been so successful. Just looking at some of the stats, Larry Dixon is leading Army in rushing, 342 yards per game and 84 per game, 4 touchdowns on the season. The 2 quarterbacks are next. Angel Santiago is averaging 67 yards a game, and A.J. Shure, 66. A little bit of a disappointment so far. We haven't really seen him, Terry Baggett have a breakout performance. He's just got 155 yards so far, 36 a game. And Ray Maples, who's been actually catching a lot of passes, is averaging 26 a game. And then Aaron Kemper, a new player, newcomer, 27 yards a game. So the Army backfield's got a lot of players, but I think everybody's waiting for Ray Maples and for Terry Baggett to have, the two seniors, to have breakout performances. Passing the ball, Angel Santiago 16 of 20 and 60 per game, 60 yards per game. A.J. Shure has 7 of 15 passing for 123 yards and 1 touchdown pass. Joe Walker's got the other pass, one of the Army running backs. As we said, on receiving, Tony Giovanelli is leading Army with 5, tied with Edgar Poe. Xavier Moss has got 4, and Ray Maples and Kelvin White, the former quarterback, now a tight end, has got 3. And, of course, on interceptions, the Army backfield has really helped the team with 5 interceptions so far. Josh Jenkins got 2, and Jeremy Timpf has also got 2. Chris Carnegie has 1. And one of the notables is the performance of Josh Jenkins, defensive back, as a kickoff return, and just overall on special teams. He also covers punts down a number of balls inside the 5-yard line, and really shown his versatility as a player on special teams. He's averaging 16 yards on kickoff returns. Chris Carnegie also, his partner in the defensive backfield, is averaging 25 on 2 returns. Larry Dixon leads the team in scoring with 4 touchdowns, although tied with Angel Santiago, and Matt Giacinta and a number of others have 1 touchdown apiece. And I just want to mention on punt returns for Josh Jenkins has carried all of the returns. He has got 4 punt returns. Hasn't really broken one out, but he is a very sure-handed player for Army, and a player that you really want to see back there covering, catching and covering punts. Alex Tardeau, who I had a chance to talk to, if you go to our page on YouTube for 2014 Army football, we have an interview this week with Alex Tardeau, the punter who's from Oregon, and he's been averaging 41 yards a kick, 17 so far. And again, on defensive statistics, Jeremy Timpf leads Army with 43, number 39. Not a big player, but he is very adept, pass catching, very athletic, and a player to watch, a real find this year. And he's only a sophomore, so he and Andrew King, the middle inside linebacker from Queens, New York, really add a lot of potential for the next several years in the Army defense. So we're looking forward to a 12 noon kickoff at Michie Stadium on Saturday. Army and Ball State, both teams 1-3, looking to turn around their seasons with a win. Army, a team that plays well at home. The weather could be a little wet. We'll see. But that should lend itself to Army's running game. So it should be interesting. And then also later in the day, we'll watch Air Force host Navy in the first of the 3 Commander-in-Chief Trophy games, which means so much to the 3 academies. It's the goal of each of the academies to win that trophy at the start of the season. So we'll watch and see how this rejuvenated Air Force team does against Navy with its heralded quarterback, Keenan Reynolds. So it's an interesting day of Academy football on Saturday. So watch for us on Facebook, West Point Football Report, where we will have photos and interviews. Also on Twitter, look for a Sons Legion Radio, or my name, Ken Kraetzer, will have reports from the field before, during, and then after the game. We'll have comments from players and Coach Jeff Munkin after the game. Just a joy to report and get to meet and tell you about some of the great players and individuals that you meet around Academy football. Last week we had a chance to say hello to General Raymond Odierno, who was out at the Yale game. He actually gave a talk at Yale on Friday, and then he stayed on to enjoy watching the football game, although like all the other Army fans, disappointed with the outcome. But this is the game where Army could turn around its season against a Ball State team that's struggling. So an opportunity for Army to get its second win of the year, and then proceed on its schedule with its next home game against Rice. So we will be out there, Mikey Stadium, on Saturday. Watch us. Take a look at us on Facebook, West Point Football Report. And then Sunday night, we will be on Blog Talk Radio at 8 o'clock to talk about the game. Check us there, West Point Football Report, post Ball State, or on West Point Football Report. We'll have the phone number if you'd like to call in and give your thoughts about the game, about the Army Ball State game. That's Blog Talk Radio from 8 to 9 o'clock on Sunday night. So, from the Sports Page Restaurant in downtown White Plains, New York, this is Ken Kraetzer. This edition of the West Point Football Report, part of Sons of the American Legion Radio, committed to helping America's veterans, and part of Squadron 135 Post in White Plains, New York. So look forward to seeing everybody at Mikey Stadium on Saturday, and the word for today is beat Ball State. Thank you, everyone.